The storm hit our plane like a clenched fist from the sky. One moment I was seated in row 17, staring at the back of a glossy business magazine, and the next, the oxygen masks dropped, alarms screamed, and the world tilted in a violent spin. I remember the sound of metal tearing, the burning smell of fear in the air, and the flash of ocean beneath us before everything went white. When I opened my eyes again, I was floating in warm, shallow water, sand scraping my palms, my throat raw from shouting for help that never answered. If you believe in kindness, second chances, or stories that remind us how fragile life can be, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. It helps keep these emotional stories alive for you. The heat of the sun pressed down as I forced myself to my knees, coughing seawater, trying to understand where I was. The crash site was nowhere in sight, no broken plane, no burning wreckage, nothing but endless turquoise water and a wide stretch of untouched beach. For a long moment, I sat there listening to my heartbeat pound against my ribs like it was trying to escape, and then I heard a soft groan behind me. Turning, still shaking, I saw a figure stumble from a cluster of palm trees, her navy blouse ripped at the shoulder, her hair tangled with strips of grass and leaf, her skin scratched and sun-streaked. Even in that state, I recognized her instantly. It was my boss, the woman most people at the company whispered about as if she were made of steel, the woman whose signature determined whether hundreds of employees kept their jobs, the woman whose rare smile people waited months to see. Ardeline Royce, my boss, and apparently my only companion on an island no one knew we had fallen onto. She stared at me with disbelief and relief twisted together in her dark blue eyes before stumbling my way, her chin trembling despite everything she always tried to control. I caught her before she collapsed into the sand. I remember thinking how unreal it was to hold the woman who once controlled my performance reviews, now shivering in my arms like someone terrified of breaking. Time blurred as we checked each other for injuries, gathered ourselves, and tried to figure out what had happened. The sky above was painfully bright, the ocean shimmering with an innocence that betrayed the chaos we had survived. Ardeline's voice kept catching as she tried to stay composed, insisting she only needed water and a moment to think. But even as she spoke, her hand remained wrapped around my wrist in a grip that told another story, one that admitted fear despite every attempt to hide it. Over the next hours we explored the stretch of beach and the tree line beyond it. The island wasn't large, but it was thick with greenery and the constant hum of insects. We found no other survivors, no flares, no pieces of the plane, nothing to suggest where we had crashed or whether anyone even knew to look for us. Ardeline kept repeating that the company would notice we hadn't checked in, that our flight would be reported missing, that search teams would sweep the area. But every time she said it, her voice lost a little more certainty. When the sun was high, we managed to find coconuts, a fallen tree limb that could be carved into something like a walking stick, and a shallow cave near the ridge that offered shade. The heat made everything feel heavier, emotions included. With each passing hour, I saw more of my boss than I ever had back in the office. I saw the exhaustion behind her discipline, the trembling in her fingers as she tried to tie her torn blouse, the way panic flickered across her face whenever the wind rustled too suddenly. For someone always described as intimidating, she looked startlingly human, frightened, hurting, and unsure. Night approached faster than we expected, dyeing the sky in brilliant streaks of orange and coral. We made a small fire using dried palms and friction. The flames were small, but enough to cast our shadows against the cave wall. For the first time since joining her department 3 years ago, Ardeline actually looked at me. Not the employee, not the assistant, but the person. Her voice softened when she spoke, raw with vulnerability. She told me her father had been a pilot, and that turbulence always terrified her, even though she never admitted it. She asked if I thought anyone would find us. I wanted to promise yes. I wanted to offer certainty. But looking around at the endless ocean, the untouched sand, the quiet that felt like another world entirely, I couldn't lie to her. I shook my head, unable to speak. Ardeline exhaled, her shoulders dropping. Then she said something I never expected from her. "If no one comes, will you stay with me? I mean it. I don't want to face this alone." Her voice didn't break. It simply trembled with honesty. No walls, no armor. Just a woman scared of disappearing from the world without anyone to witness her story. That night, we slept leaning against each other for warmth. The air strange and full of forest sounds neither of us knew how to interpret. I remember waking up several times, listening to her soft breathing, aware of how surreal it was to be so close to someone who had once been nothing but a figure of authority. And yet, the more hours we survived, the more she transformed into something different, someone real, someone flawed, someone trying her best. Days passed. The sun blazed down every afternoon, making our clothes stiff and our skin raw. We rationed coconuts and collected water from small puddles after rare tropical rains. The island forced a kind of raw honesty onto us. When you're stripped of routine, status and reputation, you start seeing each other in layers you never thought you'd witness. Ardeline became softer, and I became stronger. We built a more stable shelter using branches and large leaves. We learned to break open coconuts more efficiently. I spotted a stream one afternoon tucked between thick bushes, and together we followed it to a freshwater pool that felt like stumbling into a miracle. Ardeline laughed, actually laughed, when she washed her face and felt cool water for the first time in days. It was a bright, surprised sound, like something she hadn't let herself feel in years. We grew used to watching the horizon every morning, just in case. We talked about our lives back home, our regrets, our mistakes. She told me she had poured so much into her work that she had lost friendships, connections, even her own sense of peace. She admitted she had admired my persistence and heart since the day I joined her team, but had been afraid to show it because she didn't want to seem biased. Hearing that from someone like her felt strange, like the earth shifting beneath my feet again. One afternoon, after gathering branches, I found Ardeline sitting alone near the water, knees pulled to her chest, sunlight catching the wetness in her eyes. She didn't hear me approach until I sat beside her. She confessed that each passing day felt like losing a little more hope. She feared disappearing from the world without anyone remembering her beyond the title she carried. I told her she wasn't alone, not here, not now. I told her I wouldn't leave her side, no matter how long it took. Her gratitude was silent, expressed instead in the way she leaned her head against my shoulder as the wind swept softly across the sand. As days turned to weeks, we created routines, checking the beaches for debris, gathering fruit, maintaining the fire, exploring different parts of the island. Hope was fragile but present. We comforted each other during thunderstorms, played silly guessing games under the shade, told stories about childhood moments neither of us had shared with anyone else before. The island had taken away everything familiar, but in return, it gave us something unexpectedly precious: connection. One morning, we hiked up the highest ridge on the island to watch the sunrise. The sky glowed in gentle gold, lighting Ardeline's face with a peace I hadn't seen in her before, maybe ever. She watched the horizon quietly, her fingers brushing mine in small, unspoken reassurance. We didn't talk about the possibility of rescue anymore. It was too painful, too uncertain. Instead, we talked about small things: if she would still panic at turbulence after this, if I would ever complain about office air conditioning again, if the world would feel too loud when we returned. The change came one bright afternoon when the heat was softer than usual and the ocean unusually calm. Ardeline and